Here's my Daredevil Born Again Episode 4 breakdown, and afterwards I'll give you my opinions on what will probably be coming in next week's episode. But first, please like, subscribe, and share. Anything you can do to help my channel is greatly appreciated. The episode starts with Matt picking up Hector's costume from the morgue, and he ends up running into Hector's niece, who is angry and pretty concerned with the fact that the cops went out and killed her uncle. While she doesn't have proof, it seems pretty obvious to her. Right before the opening credits, we see Muse carrying a victim. It looks like he is finally starting his big art. BB and Daniel go off clubbing, and she is getting him drunk. He thinks he's getting somewhere with this girl, but she's really just trying to get information about the mayor's office out of him easily. He ends up revealing that the mayor has some plans down at the docks. Hopefully this doesn't come back to bite him later in the episode. Matt takes on a pro bono case on behalf of his partner. He doesn't really want to do it, but maybe it'll take his mind off of the fact that Hector was murdered yesterday. Vanessa and Wilson are at the therapist. It happens to be Matt's girlfriend, but none of them know that yet. And the therapist wants to talk about the affair. They need to address that if they're going to move forward in their marriage. She felt abandoned by Wilson just as she used to feel abandoned by her father back in the day. She claims her lover ran off and she never got to say goodbye to him. She's worried that Wilson killed him, but Wilson claims that all he ever did was talk to the man and profess his love for Vanessa. Before they leave, they're given a homework assignment. They need to decide if they want to stay in this marriage. And if they do, they need to decide that they forgive each other, because forgiveness is the highest form of love. The doctor pulls Vanessa aside right at the end just to make sure she feels safe. She says she doesn't worry about Wilson ever hurting her. That's not something he'd do. Unlike Hector, Matt's new client is very combative. He's been accused of stealing some fiddle-faddle. Unfortunately for him, he's stolen a bunch of stuff, committed a bunch of crimes over the last 20 years, and so the DA wants to give him 30 days in jail to cool off for the fact that he commits all these crimes. But he won't take a deal. He doesn't want any time in jail, he just wants probation. He keeps going to jail and it keeps ruining his life. So he begs Matt to go to the DA and get him just probation, because that's all that he wants. Now, the DA is actually interested in flirting with Matt. After flirting with Matt, she's willing to talk the sentence down to about 10 days, but he does need to serve some time. Matt runs into Officer Powell in the police station, and he ends up asking him if he killed Hector, and if he really enjoyed getting his revenge on somebody that got one up on the NYPD. The man pushes Matt into the wall, and Matt listens to his heart. It seems like he's honest about the fact that he didn't kill Hector. Unfortunately, that means we don't know who the main suspect is of the person wearing the Punisher shirt that killed Hector, though he claims he's going to get some buddies and beat the crap out of Matt in the near future. Wilson reveals his plans to his assistants that he wants to redo the wharf. He wants to make it a destination instead of a crime-ridden area of New York City. But it turns out he will be annoyed by his second-in-command because all she talks about is the red tape. Having to follow all the rules is how you get things done in New York City. You can't just push people around like you used to as the Kingpin. Wilson is also made aware of all the crime that's still going down at the wharf. He's going to have a single crime boss controlling the city, or all the crime bosses will keep killing each other. They miss having a Kingpin leading the charge. Matt's client won't accept the 10 days in jail. He doesn't want to serve any time. He's made that clear to his lawyer, who he frankly thinks sucks because he's blind in the first place. His entire life has been unfair, and the reason he commits crime, specifically stealing this fiddle-faddle, is he wanted a dessert for once. The last time he went to jail, he lost his food stamps, and half the time he ends up having to go through the garbage to get food. So yeah, he did steal the fiddle-faddle because he wanted to taste a decent dessert for once. Well, it turns out that BB screwed over Daniel, just like I was hoping wouldn't happen at the beginning of this episode. She reveals Wilson's plan to change over the wharf, and unfortunately that plan included screwing over some local unions. So now the mayor looks bad. Between having to go to constant meetings and listening to people sing to him and having his plans ruined, the mayor is pissed, and he starts yelling at his entire staff. Daniel steps forward and admits that he's the one who leaked things to BB. He's very sorry. He understands that he's fired, but he will always support the mayor. Wilson, though, realizes that he has this kid in his pocket and decides to keep him on. Someone that devoted in his staff can be very useful in the future, but he's definitely on thin ice. Now that he knows that Officer Powell is not the person that killed Hector, Matt has to do his own investigation. So he goes to the crime scene and realizes that the ground is unlevel. And when a piece of glass rolls down the hill and finding the shell casing immediately, he ends up sniffing it and follows the smell, eventually leading him to a building that leads him to an elevator that leads him to a basement, and eventually he comes into Frank Castle's hideaway. That's right, he ran into the Punisher himself. And despite them being friends, they almost got into a huge fight to begin with. Frank looks pretty disheveled at best, and it turns out that Frank has been hiding in this basement for a long time, planning out his next kill. He also isn't willing to help Matt. He knows that Matt is trying to get him to do his dirty work, and Matt needs to step up and do his own dirty work. He says that Matt doesn't want to get his hands dirty anymore, but he needs to. He needs to get his hands dirty on behalf of Foggy. Because Foggy was an innocent and he was killed, just like Frank's family was killed. And in Frank's mind, he knows that he hears his son's voice every time there is somebody that he needs to punish. Just as Matt should be hearing Foggy's voice every time there's somebody that Daredevil needs to take out. Now, Matt claims that he's been relying on the system, and that is good enough. The system did put Bullseye in jail for life. But as Frank points out as Matt leaves, Bullseye is still breathing and Foggy is dead, so maybe the system didn't work. Wilson and Vanessa talk about their relationship, and they talk about how things have changed. Vanessa is a completely different woman than when he left. Frankly, she's a lot more powerful and a lot more self-sufficient. Matt comes home to his girlfriend who's been worried. He's been out really late. Yes, it turns out this entire episode takes place over a single day. And very late in the night, Matt wakes up, climbing up to the roof of his building and going up to a secure shed. And there he opens it up, finding his old Daredevil helmets, and specifically his old Daredevil weapons. Simultaneously, Wilson wakes up, and he goes and has the biggest meal he's had in the entire season. Yes, the Wilson we've seen has been on a diet, eating egg whites and stuff, but this episode ends with him eating a bunch of sausages and drinking a bunch of heavy dark wine. And there's someone yelling at him. Yes, it's Adam, the man that was sleeping with Wilson's wife. He may not have killed him, but he's imprisoned him in his fortress. So the episode ends with Wilson acting way more like the Kingpin than he has in the entire season. And Matt practicing to become Daredevil. It looks like these two are slowly slipping back into their old ways. And finally, right before the credits, we see Muse carrying another person down into the sewer and draining them of their blood. It looks like he's preparing for his first art show. And that's the end of Daredevil Born Again, Episode 4. So where do I think things will go in the future? I actually think things are going well between Wilson and Vanessa. I think he's going to ask her to run the crime syndicate, put the other groups in line, and help him get his work done from behind the scenes. He's tired of this red tape, and maybe having a crime boss handle things for him will really help. I think eventually Vanessa will find out that he has Adam imprisoned. But knowing Vanessa, that'll really turn her on. I think we're going to see the beginning of Daredevil next episode. I think he's going to put on the suit for the first time and start going after low-level crime. And I think by the end of episode 5, we'll finally see Muse's first art display. And things in New York City will go from bad to much, much worse. But hey, that's just what I think. Let me know what you thought of Daredevil episode 4 in the comments. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out those other videos on screen now.